Ladies and gentlemen of the crypto space, we're live on a Friday, July 18th at 11:52 a.m. Okay, it's a crazy week. All this legislation coming through Congress. Oh my goodness, they passed this, they passed that. The president's going to sign this. What more could we possibly want? What more can we possibly want? Folks look to price and they're like, I want price to go up. But that is a red herring, or that is the wrong way to think. The appropriate way to think is I had a narrative. We've had a narrative. We thought a particular way for many years. We've understood the market. We've learned how the market works. And now, fast forward 3 years, 3.5 years, yesterday, they're piping legislation through Congress talking about stable coins and how all of this is going to work from a stupid bureaucratic perspective, but still, that is something that is monumental. 1 year ago, 1 year ago, we would have never imagined these types of things occurring under Gary Gensler. They would have opened a lawsuit. They would have sued somebody or dropped a Wells notice on somebody. Not in 2025. In 2025, we got Congress pumping out bills, making the United States the crypto capital of the world. You can't make this shit up, ladies and gentlemen. All right. So, from a little bit of a technical standpoint, we'll give a little bit of an update and see what's going on. The guppies on the weekly is a much talked about, at least something that I've talked about, perspective, and it's not that interesting. Red guppies implies, all right, things are going to start to get interesting. That doesn't convey time frame or cycle length or duration or whatever that means. So we have to turn off the guppies, unfortunately, as much as we love the guppies. What's more relevant is some moving averages, particularly the weekly 100. So it's just a lovely sequence of events. You got a wick down, held as support, retest to the upside, breakdown, retest held as resistance. So this is a level of support flipped resistance, clearly because you're coming at it from the top side through the downside, retesting back to the upside. So we found this situation similarly in 2021 over a longer duration of time. Things are not going to play out the same way they did in 2021. This is just a bullish rip in the dollar post maybe 2, 3 weeks of breakdown. Structurally, everything looks like the dollar wants to go lower from here, including administration policy, including the global need for the directionality of the dollar for the entire system to actually continue working. So they haven't even cut rates yet. The rates were so much lower in 2021. The rates were what, a fraction, a tenth of a percent? Um, and we're at a very high interest rate. Yet, this is the behavior of the dollar. So, in theory, once central bank interest rates, United States central bank interest rates, because they're cutting all around the world, and that's the intrabank lending rate that has a capacity to arbitrage the value of the currency lower. Now, the complexity is things could be very different this time. You know, lowering interest rates. Trump keeps saying lower interest rates. You want mortgage rates lower, but mortgage rates are not set by interbank interest rates, Federal Reserve rate. They're set by a 10-year benchmark. So that's a strange statement, at least coming from someone who likely doesn't fully understand the mechanics of how things work. So it could be very different this time. We could easily see Fed funds rates come down and long end go up and other weird things. we could see correlations become inverse correlations and just stuff that's just generally not consistent with what has occurred historically. Now, this is probably where I find comfort in just my expectations, and I think my expectations are right. I don't just expect the dollar to come down because, oh, they got to cut the Federal Reserve rate. I expect the dollar to come down because if it doesn't, the whole system doesn't work. Dollar needs to get cheaper. Otherwise, foreign currencies are they need to get more valuable. Cyclically, the United States has to give a bone. They have to placate the rest of the world. They can't just take all the value in the dollar, but that's exactly what occurred because we inspect the most, well, I would say rational perspective on the DXY. Other people would say the most insane perspective on the DXY, the 6 month chart. Inspecting the 6 month chart, we clearly see that for the last um, 14 years, the dollar has been in a raging bull market. And that 14 years ended in 2022. So we're at 15 years out from 2008, 17 years out. So 14, 14 years. So it's a 14-year bull market in the dollar. We're 17 years out because we're in 2025. The dollar topped, as it seems, in 2022. So for 14 years, the dollar was sucking all the value out of foreign currencies. So cyclically and also secularly, the United States has to give a bone to foreign currencies and let the dollar depreciate, either um, organically or intentionally. So I don't think they have a capacity to let it organically depreciate. There's no such thing as really organic dollar depreciation, considering the amount of debt in the system. So what you really got is an administration with policy driving the depreciation of the dollar to fit with domestic policy, um, the domestic policy agenda, which is basically repatriation of supply chain and domestic manufacturing, which means you need a weak currency because otherwise you're an importer. Strong currencies import, weak currencies export. That's all it is to the relative value of currency, any nation state's currency. Very important to understand. So, consistent with that, it's a bit of a departure from the historic um, deviation of the DXY below like the 100 SMA, the weekly 100. We could easily see an interaction with the 200. In fact, I think it'd be strange to not see an interaction with the 200. It'll take some time, and I expect it to actually go lower. Folks that have been around know I've talked about the last two quote unquote crypto bull markets. And those are your crypto bull markets. This is 2020 and 2021. This was 2016, 2017. We have not had a significant bull market yet because we haven't had a significant depreciation relatively. Depreciation at 110? That doesn't count. That's getting back to square one. That's getting back to neutral. That's the dollar ripped the face off of everything, and it's like, all right, fine, we're going to stop ripping the face off of everything and get back to basically the 100 SMA. So you need a significant amount more depreciation to really get this market going as compared to what it did in 2020 and 21, or dare we say what it did in 2016 and 2017. Albeit these were two completely different worlds, 2016, 17, 2020, 2021. Completely different worlds, not just the world. The nature of these markets were different. You guys know that story. So if we zoom out to the 6 month, my general expectation becomes the most clear, and I stick with this. I expect maybe an interaction with the 10 SMA. It's the only MA on this perspective. And then a ripper, 90 rips to 100, 107, either a red line or a green line. Those are meaningful levels, as we've historically talked about. And then you have historic resistance, hold this resistance, and then you get the lower low. And I expect lower highs, lower lows next 10 to 15 years. And that's very consistent with a crypto super cycle type of conversation where things appreciate significantly more than they've done in the past with higher lows and higher highs and nominal price points. Anywho, we've had a hell of a week thus far. Curve up at 96. If you take a look at the weekly, we're interacting with the weekly 50 yet again. Last time we did that was in December of last year. You breach that 50 and we're finally going to get into a different price action, a price action we haven't seen in quite some time. And there's really no precedent. It's such a new asset. It's basically brand new. So you don't have significant moving averages for market actors to base their decisions. You need data to make decent decisions, and there's very little data. Look, on the weekly chart, barely have a 50 SMA. I mean, you're not making many decisions based on the weekly 10. So, I mean, maybe from a day, it's too short a time frame. No investor makes decisions based off a daily chart. It's just too volatile. I don't see anything really interesting here other than maybe levels. Actually pretty interesting. Go figure. There's a reason I draw lines at particular levels. As you can see, the 88-cent line was a previous resistance set back in March of 2024, also in July of 2023. Some interesting interactions with this region all throughout the history of Curve, this slightly sub dollar level. In many regards, this breach back in December to January was a failed breakout of that level. So levels are actually more important than moving averages. So if we take a peek at these levels, that's actually quite interesting. You can see further retrace back down to the 88-cent level. And if you see support, I mean, obviously we saw support for a period of time back in December, but if you see meaningful support and finally the higher high, and then you go over to the weekly and you see the breach of the 50 SMA to the upside, boom, off to the races. And that's the way this kind of data works to support what the hell it's the direction it's likely to head in. If you see a confluence, which is multiple supports compared to resistances, you have a higher likelihood of things going up. There's more support, there's more resistance, there's weakness, tendency for depreciation. So right now things look very interesting. Back up at 90 cents for Aerodrome, a little bit similar actually. I happen to like this chart. Right below the weekly 10, punched through it this time as compared to last month. What are you going to get on the monthly? Oh, yeah, that's actually interesting. Previous resistance, now potentially support month over month. I mean, that's obviously a relatively short time frame to inspect, but that is what these two candles indicate. The close was below that level, and now the open above it, and we're holding it as support, which is actually quite interesting. Um, it's a nice simple chart, Aerodrome. It's literally brand new. Came out last year, more or less. But this is a nice um, range between 50 cents and 80 cents. Anything above it was a significant premium. Obviously, anything below the 50-cent range was a reasonable discount. I think our entry, and by our entry, I mean my entry, was at 60 cents. Flight school worked out very nicely. Very happy with what it's producing. Its performance is astounding. 60 cents with flight school, the position's up 100%. It's doubled in value. Cash flow is basically about the same. We could actually take a look at that so you guys see what actual cash flow looks like. Why is this organized like that? I want to like that. It's aerodrome, and you get some cash flow. Not bad. Nothing to complain about. So I like these. You know, I voted for Aerodrome LPs first time around. I'm like, I just want cash. So, and ETH. So you just let it sit. Albeit you get better beta with the Aerodrome. I don't know. I don't know. I vote for lower percent APRs nowadays sometimes. Look at that Pepe up at 80%, but it's only $1,000. You can't do anything with that. Damn, 900 grand. That's crazy. Haven't seen that in a while. That's 40%. That's crazy. Okay, Aerodrome, game on. Let's take a look at Velogen, what it's doing. Okay, that's pretty cool. All right. Now, bear in mind, I've often said 40% is 40% is 40%. Doesn't matter if you're getting 40% from Velodrome or 40% from Aerodrome. It's the same 40%. It's literally the same exact rate of return. It's going to be the same thing. So that's something to consider with regard to excess diversification versus concentration. Very meaningful consideration in portfolio construction there. Um, Anywho, Frax has actually been doing pretty good, up at 347 over the past month. It's up meaningfully. $2 to 350. That's pretty cool. That's nice to see. Good old if you are a VE curve kind of guy or gal, uh, you know about Spell at this point because we've been talking about Spell for years. They are the payer. They are who pays the most predictably. You go over to vote, and now there's other ones that pay, but especially with resupply. But Curve's my favorite. Curve. Abracadabra's my favorite. They just have been around, and their weekly will come in, at least based on historical consistency, and they are extraordinarily consistent. They will come in at some point. 32 grand at 16%. These numbers are starting to tick up. You guys got to remember these were at a penny at some point a couple years back. So there was some significant cash going into rentals. Like triple, quadruple these numbers. Wild numbers. Nice numbers. Nothing that these are very respectable numbers. Oh, I wish I had this with um Abracadabra showing in vote market. That would give you a decent estimate. So it's 1.43% on base CRV USD, which is not the most exciting of cash flow. 1.43%. But that brings the conversation yield basis. Folks wanted me to talk about that, and I think we're possibly getting to it. We talked about Aero, Velo, Spell. Talk about Frax for a second. Curve looks good, 93 cents. What we do. DXY rejecting the weekly 100, as we said. That's very interesting thus far. It is Friday. Moved down at 85. Oof, look at that. Look at that. That is a heck of a tombstone, inverted hammer, whatever you want to call that. It's like a doji. What do they call that? Tombstone doji? Is that what they call it? Gravestone doji? Yeah, gravestone doji, where you have basically the open and close price at more or less the same price, and then you have the dragonfly, long-legged, spinning top, very similar types of terminology. Well, there you go. That's interesting to say the least. This goes down, market goes up, period. You see this open at like 75? Yes, that's going to be an interesting week. And we have confluence for a continued move down. Basically, move is lags 10-year yields. So you see 10-year yields start to come down, your volatility is going to start to come down as well. Very, very interesting. You holding RSUP? No, I don't do RSUP. I didn't do it. I didn't do resupply. Um, that's it. Simple as that. I just didn't do it. I don't need it. Curve Federation resupply supports CRVUSD, and yield basis is going to support CRVUSD. Yield basis is going to have its own token as well. I don't chase these things. I mean, it's like chasing this garbage, this black hole shit. I mean, look at the liquidity on this thing. They have tremendous amount of liquidity. Oh no, I thought it was more. Huh. Total value. What? I remember, wasn't this up at like 100 and something million? Uh, I don't know. Maybe I'm looking at wrong numbers. But the point is, if you go over to votes and you go over to fees, I mean, it's literally nothing. It's literally, all right, USDC black, that makes sense. Everyone's buying and whatever. But look at that fall off. There's only one, two, three, four LPs that are doing anything meaningful with fees. Everything else is shit. I mean, look at these APRs. This is garbage. It's all just, you know, um, the elephant sucking itself off meme. Sorry to be graphic, but that's basically what this is. And 50% my ass. Yeah, everyone's going to dump it. That's the whole point of the fees. It's not sustainable. Anyway, we'll see how well this retains liquidity. We shall see. Um, Seikatsu, my friend, yeah, yo basis. That's probably the next thing that I'm excited about. Bill Pass, LFG. I try to tell everyone about your stream, but it ain't for the majority. I mean, look how I talk. Most people don't understand me. Hey, heck, half the time, I don't even understand me. I'm grateful by the end of the stream, I get out some coherent thoughts. And I'm pretty sure I do a couple of decent thoughts. Mostly keep calm and collected and don't take things too seriously. Anywho, I hope I've helped over the years, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, Cap. Much a pleasure. Soon. How are you? DCA man. Good morning. Good morning. Jacob. Hey, now I found two cool projects last week. Peapod and F-Bomb. Old stuff, of course. One is the new volatility. No, Peapod is old. They had a lot of bad debt. The other is not one holder, Villa Arrow. Not quite. I'm pretty sure that isn't Coinbase. Isn't Optimism one of the largest holders of Velo? Yeah, but yeah, I don't have anything really negative to say about F-Bomb. F-Bomb is decent. It's just a reflexive, self-buying, flywheel type of project. F-Bomb's fine. Not something that I would own though. Peapod's no interest. I'm not. I keep things simple, and I ensure that things that I own are tried and tested and have survived 2022. Peapods didn't survive 2020. Revenue to burn their coin. Exactly. That's what F-Bomb does. That's fine. F-Bomb and the folks who have built it, it does what it does. Whether it does well or not, that's great. That's cool. Happy if it does well. It's not something that I am overly interested in. Hope that clarifies my position. Sir Joe, President of Count 4. Sir, yes, sir. Kill list. Good morning. Morning, Captain the Hook. Just a thought for happy hour, Agent Chud Messi, Captain Rational. I'm always happy to talk with the Chudster whenever he wants. We are on our own paths. Our paths cross in a couple of other channels every now and then. But if our path, maybe with Jedi will moderate. We've done that kind of thing before. That'd be nice. Take Pusher. Imagine you were more invested in price appreciation or revenue like you are. How would you approach where to start reallocating the stable coins. I'm not going to ride it all the way to a higher low. Yeah, that's me. I want a higher low. I have no interest in buying and selling. While people are frantic and prices are doubling during the day, I want to be at the pool and be like, all right, that's cool, because everyone out else is they're out doing the work, and I'm just interested in the next higher low. So I appreciate what you're saying, that that's not what everyone is interested in. A lot of folks are interested in total net worth and things like that, things that you're alluding to. Um, Price appreciation. That's technical analysis and trying to catch moves going up, and then because you don't want to give back money, that kind of logic is we were up at 200 122 on Bitcoin, and you don't want to give the money back between 122 and 117. That's $5,000 if you from a one Bitcoin perspective. So you want to capture that $5,000, let it fall down to 117, and then you could rebuy, and then it goes to 125. So that's the whole. That's exactly what trading is, and the whole um, price appreciation. You're capturing price appreciation, and what drives price appreciation is other people buying and selling. So you're not really capturing price appreciation. You're actually capturing other people's money, and that's just the mechanics of how that works. Um, but if I did things like that, I do it like all the big boys. It's just technical analysis. Like, what's the odds? What's your measured move? And you got to go in a much shorter time frame. Um, I'm not. I think it's absolutely insane the folks that trade things like Arrow and Velo, and I mean, look, I was just about to say Curve, and we know, um, credible crypto loves his Curve. Um, I just I don't know. You might as if you're trading, you might as well do like the big meme coins, like the Pepes and the Andes and stuff like that. I don't know. I just I can't do it. It's just not. I don't have it in me anymore. Um, how would I approach it? I wouldn't approach it. Um, Wait, maybe I'm not entirely answering your question. Let me read slowly. How? When? Okay, I'm not answering your question. You said after price appreciation, when to start reallocating the stablecoins? Okay, it's actually a good question from a macroeconomic standpoint. Um, if the move blows out, eyes on move, all eyes on move. Move rolls down finally below 80 for the first time in years, and then it keeps falling, keeps falling, keeps falling. You get some serious bullishness down into the 50s. Things start to get weird. You see a fat spike from 50 to like 96. Probably want to start sizing out. Now, move will be a forward-looking indicator. Things don't necessarily blow up like they did in March of 2020. So you probably have a little bit of time, and you can catch really big secondary waves. For instance, at look at Bitcoin's secondary wave. That's a hell of a secondary wave. It actually went to a higher high. So you can miss out. My 2 cents on missing out is it doesn't matter. If move rips, that would be a reason to start to liquidate. Now, bear in mind, that's the whole point of intervention. The whole point of intervention from the federal government standpoint is to suppress volatility such that the system continues, hopefully uninterrupted. So this is why I have my framework. Just buy things. Because one, it makes it so much simpler. Two, at some point everyone intervenes. And three, if they don't intervene, it doesn't matter. Everyone's shooting each other for food anyway. It all falls apart. Society falls apart. So they do intervene. It's inevitable. Um, yeah, don't ride it to a higher low from a trading perspective. It's a very reasonable statement. Um, this is the whole statement of scaling out, when to start taking profits and stuff like that. I don't do it. I don't work like that. You guys know that. You know that, Tape Pusher. We've been doing this a long time. I hope my Couple of words that I could offer on it on the topic help. I would look for volatility in the system. Look for a sharp move in the DXY, sharp move in the move. Those are the big things. You see a spike in the DXY, spike in the move, you have a decent forward looking indicator that things are going to start to get rocky. Hope that helps. It'd be great to get the adults in the room to discuss real projects and revenues like Liquidity and Curve, which is what we really discuss all the time. These are the real projects. My portfolio only consists of the realest of projects. Liquidity isn't started yet. I have a high opinion of Liquidity. A lot of people do, like Agent Chud and whatnot. And we've been at this a long time, me and him, and we have literally the exact same opinion of Liquidity. Um, it doesn't pay anything right now, but the reason I like it because it's into my speculative revenue category is it's immutable. It doesn't matter if it doesn't pay right now. Same thing like Frax. It doesn't matter if it doesn't pay right now. If Frax does what it's likely destined to do, it's going to pay. If Liquidity does like what it's destined to do, it's immutable and it works, it's got to pay. So those are the types of things you do a reasonably sized bet on. Now, I don't primarily invest in things that will speculatively pay. You guys know my rule number three, fuck you, pay me. So I predominantly like things that pay right now. So that's where Aerodrome, Velodrome, Curve come into the picture. They pay right now. Now, the difference between the V33s and old school voter escrow with Curve, it's a long conversation. Curve isn't the same thing as Velodrome and Aerodrome. And if anyone's doing a comparison, they're literally doing it from a foreign exchange perspective. And they don't fully, they're not fully talking about whole scale and scope of what crypto offers and what Curve offers from a crypto context. CRBUSD. It's apples and oranges. Foreign exchange and what Curve is. Curve is the five businesses. To top it off, this yield basis thing is potentially really wild from a CRVUSD supply standpoint. A one-to-one deposit. You deposit a $500 million worth of Bitcoin into yield basis, you're going to print a $500 million worth of CRVUSD. That's crazy. So the potential is kind of wild. Yield basis could be a real Bitcoin sink. Um, Now, everything starts slow because everything requires trust, but no one duplicates those algorithms. No one duplicates that mathematics that is built into yield basis. These are unique things that only Michael comes up with. Um, that's what he has historically done, and that's why Curve is what it is because of his physics capacity applied to a crypto problem. Extraordinary what he's built. And I very much look forward to seeing what yield basis does. It has the potential to drive CRVUSD supply tremendously, and that ultimately drives CRVUSD revenues, which drives VECRV revenues, which makes VECRV investable. There's the logic. Hope that makes sense. Gaming Larry, Trump doesn't know what is going on. He just wants Fed to move so his team gets points for 2026 midterm. By the way, it's scary how much admin is pushing to fire Powell, force him to resign. Yeah, I don't really think about this stuff much. I know obviously everything you're talking about. Um, what I know is I tend to think most people are irrational. I'm a do things on my own kind of guy. I don't really like to be in social situations. I go to movies by myself and I'm a-okay with it. I'm that guy who does things for himself by himself. Point being, in response to your statement, other people scare me. Other people drive me nuts. I even drive myself nuts. So if I got to deal with anyone, I deal with myself, and I tend to leave other people out of the equation. So politics, woo, that's one way to drive yourself nuts. So be careful, everyone out there. That shit'll make you crazy. Dante's, hello, lads. Much a pleasure. Hefty briefcase, fuck you, pay me. You guys know. It's a simple one. Rule number one, rule number two, rule number three. Everything else is crazy. I don't have time for that. If I was 20 years old, I wish somebody would tell me about rule number one, rule number two, rule number three. 20 years old. By the time I was 30, oh man, if I could do it all over again. Anywho, it's literally just DCA. I would have, you would have messed, I would have messed up 20 to 24. I would have messed up a couple of years because I wouldn't have known what to buy. But then you figure out what to buy, and you would have had assets. So you're accumulating the entire time. So 20 to 30, how much assets are you going to accumulate? I didn't do this in my 20s. I didn't start investing really until my late 30s. Even if I started in my early 30s, I would have done so much better. Anywho, Dante's, does CAP have any price prediction for cleave, curve, convex if things pan out the way we are predicting? I don't do price predictions. Even for myself, I do higher, meaning I do expectations that leave me thinking they're likely to occur. So that's why I said on X the other day, what's my general expectation for a higher low? I generally expect my portfolio to be next higher low 10 to 50x where it was in 2022, which was obviously devastated. Um, it actually continued to depreciate. I'm sorry, good parts of it into 2024. Altcoin bottoms, altcoin bottom. So I expect about a 10 to 50x low to low. The top, that's going to get weird. This is different this time. The government is telling the boomers to buy our bags. 2020 and 2021 cannot be what 25 and 26 are like. It was a different world in 20 and 21. Nobody knew what the hell was going on. There was no market. Everyone was just going around insane trying to figure out what the heck is happening. So it's different. It will be different, and I think it's going to be much more interesting. Joel, much pleasure. Much pleasure. Yeah, it's an incredible portfolio and even more incredible cash flow. Any tips for a pleb like me to get into it? Well, yes, to be honest, late is statement. 2000 November 2024 was best price points for most of the cash flow uh, off their space. Um, best 2 cents I have is you have to have a longer time frame for expectations, and you need to have a nice budget. Meaning, listen, I tell cousins, and they don't listen to me for shit. I'm like, don't move out. Stay at home. Deal with your parents between 20 and 30. And I say it to myself, if I could between 18 and 30, if I could have not gone to college and worked at like Best Buy Geek Squad because I'm a geek and made 50 grand a year, and if I invested 40 grand a year between 18 and 30, and it's obviously there's going to be salary increases, inflation, and all that shit. So it's probably going to be a whole lot of uh, numbers to consider. Uh, 70 grand, but it's the value is 40 grand. I don't know. So it gets complicated. But the point is, if I took like 80% of my capital that I made every year between 18 and 30 and just bought assets, I'd be done. If you do the CAGR on Bitcoin, 30% CAGR on 40K invested yearly for 12 years, um, of 30% and 40K invested yearly for 12 years. Uh, oh my God, can I type? What's the t- total net worth? All right, Grok. 40K, so it's 40K compounded at 30% for 12 years. Do the calculation, please. Thank you very much, artificial intelligence. Yeah, compound interest. There you go. Smarty pants. Yes, I know it's compound. CAGR, compound average growth rate. Keep it coming, keep it coming. So 40K invested for 12 years, the compound average growth rate of 30%, which is Bitcoin. Okay, run the extrapolation. Grok 4, usually faster. You doing a search for a CAGR calculation? All right, AI's still got a ways to go. In all fairness, I'm asking AI to do a CAGR calculation instead of doing it on my own. So this is my fault. So 40K for 12 years, for 10 years is 400, so it's $480,000. Compound average growth rate was like $1.4 million. So 480 becomes 1.4. Let's see if it actually works. Jesus, Grok 4, come on. It's not annuity, it's a CAGR 30%, compound 30%, 40K for 12 years. I think it's the language, me and my language. What's total net worth? Code execution. Oh my God. Fine, it's cool. 2 point, there you go. P, okay. PRN. All right, so 40K invested for 12 years at a compound average growth rate of 30%, 2.973 mil. Is that what it is? Yeah, I think that is right. So you say you didn't really have to do much. You just had to do nothing. Just got to had to sit at home and let time and compound interest do the work. Um, so I can't help with crushing the medical bills. I can't help with how to make money. I don't know how to make money. All I know is how the equations like this and time and compound interest and what things are good to own, what assets are good to own, what assets are good investments versus what assets are good cash, like a Bitcoin or Ethereum and their potential price appreciation trajectories. So I don't know how to make money. All I know is how to buy assets. What the assets do are another story. So I can't that right there. Let me just be very honest. Wanting to make money is not why to invest. You need to invest and have a methodology around investing that happens to make money because the investing methodology is rational. The second you try and make money investing is how you mess up investing because you buy something and you want it to go up and it doesn't, it goes down. You're like, I'm losing money. You, you all folks know what I experienced in 2022, the amount of money lost, total net worth. Your total net worth gets eviscerated, destroyed in the bear markets. You're down 80% of the money. So making money is not your portfolio going up, and losing money is not your portfolio going down. This is why I tell folks that total net worth is meaningless. What matters is how much cash you have on Friday, which is why rule number three is so meaningful. So if you have all your money in Bitcoin, you have no money, right? Isn't that an interesting statement, ladies and gentlemen? If you only own Bitcoin, you have no money. Now you can start to have conversations like spending Bitcoin and government policy with like a de minimis exemption, so you could spend Bitcoin and not have a tax liability, like up to $600, I think they were talking about. So that's an interesting policy because if they do that, then you could start to think about Bitcoin as a type of money because you could spend it without a tax liability. That's interesting. But if you own just assets, you don't truly have money right now. Complicated. I don't have easy answers. So GMZ, all I have is the conversation and the questions that I even ask myself. And that leads to more conversation and more questions. And frankly, you said incredible portfolio. I haven't really showed portfolio. I've showed just velodrome and aerodrome. So velodrome and aerodrome are cool. Aerodrome's cool. And this is just the result of having a methodology. So I don't know where to start. If someone asked me how to do what I did, I don't know. I don't have an answer. And bear in mind, GMC, this isn't a portfolio. This is literally um, called LPs. These are this is other people's money, and this is how much other people are paying. This isn't I don't have 991,000, 411,000, 188,000, 169. That's not my money. So don't don't confuse um, this vote presentation because then you could go over to the liquidity presentation and be like, there's $653 million in this LP. So that's not my money. These dashboards, I know a lot of folks are coming into crypto because the market's finally going up. Um, this is probably going to be pretty overloading people. What the hell's going on here? What are these LPs? What does $650 million in TVL mean? You look at all this TVL, millions and millions and millions of dollars. It's all there. What does it all mean? No easy answers. Hope that helps, dude. Nathan, good afternoon. Cap off topic, but what do you think about the Genius Act that passed and the Clarity Act? Um, I think that it confirms everything that I thought and everything that I've said and all my narratives and all my ideas, and it will be good for Curve going forward. Simple, huh? Jacob, thank you for the answer. I think you might be thinking of different project though. Peapods came out in 2023 and has no bad debt. Maybe thinking of inverse finance. Inverse finance does have the bad debt. Yes, indeed. Uh, Peapods, yeah, but still, I'm not interested in either one of them. I'm not interested in much. I have very relatively concentrated portfolio these days. I was thinking of getting FPONG at leverage. I don't do leverage. Tavelo Arrow, or is that no? It's not stupid. It's gambling. It's leverage. It's a big part of crypto is gambling, longing and leverage and shorting and what have you. And I'm not here to be a parent. I'm not here to tell people that they should or should not do anything. I'm here to tell people my story, and I'm here to tell people and encourage people to be rational. Um, I go for less money rather than more. I remind myself that I want to be humble and be grateful for anything that I'm able to achieve. And owning spot, you will never lose any money with reasonable allocations. Like Bitcoin is not going to zero. So the value might go down, but it's not like a meme coin where it literally goes to zero. So if you have a reasonable investment, um, you'll always have money. So I don't know. I don't do leverage, and that's my 2 cents. I do know of F-bomb though, and I have nothing bad to say about it. Tape pusher, rather than trading small moves, I'm thinking more when Bitcoin is 250K and the market offers you millions for your CVX. I'm not going to watch it all disappear. I appreciate how hard it is to time it. Uh, yeah, I that's what I'm saying. That's probably the hardest thing that I try and story I try and tell. I am going to watch it disappear. I'm going to watch it go up to the most insane valuations, and I'm going to watch it come down to a higher low because I have structured a business. I have managed my accounting, and I've built it in such a way that I am good with that. That is what I want to do, and that is what I want to see, and that is how I will behave. And I will be calm, cool, and collected, and I will have no anxiety, no frustrations, and I will not be overwhelmed by the market. I have set my expectation, and I am prepared, and I'll be very happy. High or low, and I'll be doing just fine. So that's my 2 cents. Watch it all disappear. I appreciate that. I'm gonna watch my previous all-time high go by in the rearview mirror, like, whoa, there it goes. The previous all-time high, previous portfolio all-time high. Whoa, ooh, zoom, zoom. Okay, so the higher low should be higher than the previous all-time high by meaningful multiples. I appreciate what you're saying, though. I'm not going to watch it disappear. And most people do. Most people lose. Most people just lose everything. And I don't have answers. All I have is my story. Gaming Larry, haha, that's a good answer. Similar way. Cheers. Much a pleasure, my friend. Capital Friday. Yes, indeedy. Crazy week indeed. They pumping our bags. The boomers are buying the bags because they're late to the party. They're so late. They've done nothing for the last years, and now they're like, oh, there's a whole $4 trillion in the crypto markets. This is an investable landscape of cash flow paying businesses. So they're late. They're going to buy the bags. Not giving my crypto coins to boomers or plebs, though. I could appreciate that, but we could appreciate also where we started, how hard it was, and how long and difficult it was to get to where we are. And my answer to that is I'm not going to sell anything. I don't sell anything. My rules are very simple. Rule number one, own more assets. Rule number two, know when to stop buying assets. And rule number three is fuck you, pay me. So rule number one, buying more assets. Rule number two, stop buying assets. And rule number three, make sure those assets that you buy pay you. I don't hear a sell assets. There's no rule number four, sell your assets at all time high. I don't have a sell assets rule. I buy assets that on Wednesday and Thursday, they pay me. But the stock market does that too. They do it quarterly, or if you own stuff like Realty Income Corporation, they do it monthly. It's called dividends. So it's the same thing there, except I like my dividends paid weekly from crypto businesses instead of my dividends paid monthly from real estate investment trusts or my dividends paid quarterly by some corporation. So when folks hear my story about the cash flow in crypto, this is a very traditional investor practice, a cash flow business. That's how all the boomers are. All the boomers are invested in cash flow. They're annuities or they're it's all cash flow. But when I talk about it from a crypto perspective, everyone's like, "What the hell's going on?" Because this is just atypical. All I'm doing is literally taking a page out of the boomer playbook and saying, "I wanna own quality businesses," and nobody out there other than me knows what a quality business is. I mean, there's obviously a lot of folks, there's a lot of curve investors. But the truth is, all the folks on our stream, on Discord, and all the folks on social media, on X, that invest in Curve are tiny, microscopic. There are so many more boomers, and they're so old, and, and they're going to be so late, and they're going to buy our bags because we saw it before they did. That is what these bills in Congress are going to do. It's going to facilitate a transfer of wealth from the old and the boomer to the young and the, I don't know, not boomer, something like that. Anywho, it's Grok 4 now way better than O3. So Grok 4, I use it for legal documents. It's astounding. It's extraordinary. I only use Grok nowadays. I don't program with it. I do my own programming. Um, so it depends. Depends on the application. Nathan, thanks, Cap, for the knowledge. Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. GMZ. Okay, looks like I'm out of luck. This It's not really out of luck. It's not like there's a threshold. You're late compared to November of 24. For instance, Curve's at a buck at 90 what cents? I don't know. 92 cents. It was 20 cents. And it was available for 20 cents less. These are on very short-term wicks, but you could have gotten it for about 20 cents. So it's up 500%, give or take. So things are significantly off bottom. That means instead of buying 1,000, same amount of money buy 200 Curve, stuff like that. So it's not about out of luck. Every day is an opportunity to own more assets. The question is what asset? The question is at what price? The evaluation is it a discount? Further evaluation is it a business? Does it pay good cash flow? Is it mispriced? Can I buy it cheaper than what it will be in the future? Will its business do more business in the future? Now, bear in mind, you don't have to do this with just crypto. You can do this with stuff on the stock market as well. There's probably some decent paying equities. I know I'm hard on the boomers. I'm hard on the boomer meme coin crowd that boomer meme coin because stocks are basically boomer meme coin. I'm hard on them, but I'm sure there's opportunities there from a cash flow perspective. Um, so it takes time, though. That's the hardest thing. People that want money quick tend to lose money. But if you have a 10-year time frame that every year you're going to invest 20, 30, 40, 50% of the amount of money you make, and you're going to have money in 10 years. You're going to have a fair amount of money. You're going to have a lot of cash flow too, because you bought salaries over those 10 years. Now, the problem there is most people get ahead of their skis and they go through their 20s and they got fat credit card bills and they moved out of their house and maybe they have a mortgage and they make 4 grand a month and they spend 3,500 of it and you're screwed because you're spending all the money you make. But if you make 4 grand a month and you're 20 years old and you're like, Mom and Dad, make a deal with you, please. I'm going to relax. I'm going to be cool. I'm not going to cause any problems. I'm going to stay here for about 10 years. And mom and dad are like, "Hmm, okay, what are you going to do?" And you're like, well, I'm going to work my ass off and I'm going to invest all my money. And mom and dad are like, oh, you're going to teach yourself? And then you're like, yes, I'm going to teach myself. I'm going to do something rational. I'm going to do something very different than most people. I'm going to be smart instead of moving out and wasting all my money. I'm going to invest all my money. And mom and dad are like, So proud of you. That sounds lovely. You can stay here as long as you want. So you stay at home. See, the problem is we dig our ditches. We make things difficult for ourselves and then you can't undo it. There is no control Z button. There is no undo mortgage. Undo mortgage, control alt delete, restart. That's the unfortunate reality where a lot of folks are. And I'm sorry for that. I scream at my cousin. I got a cousin that's 26. I scream at and if he's listening, he knows exactly who it is. And if you're not 26 or you're close to it, you're still 26 to me, dude. And I scream at him about it. And then I have another cousin that's 18 and he doesn't fucking get it. He'll never know. Yeah, I've told him to buy Bitcoin since it was like 20 grand. And that kid's like, oh no, I'm a kid. I don't do things like that. And the fucking kid's gonna miss out on the biggest. It doesn't listen to me for shit. All right. Is what it is. Okay. Listen, I wouldn't have done it myself. I probably wouldn't have done it myself. It's a strange statement, right? Is that bad or good? I don't know. I don't think those are decent qualifiers. But it's probably a true statement. Sometimes these are the things you just learn with age. And then you look back and you wish you listened to someone that had experience. Anyhow, thank you all for listening to my ranting and raving, and I hope it's helpful. I hope you enjoy these markets and you're not filled with anxiety or frustration. You know, we've talked a lot about health, sit in a sauna. We've talked a lot about mental stability and how to be woosah. We talked about over the last years how to prepare for what's going on right now. That we were going to be calm, cool, collected while everyone's running around frantic and panicking. And that's why right now I'm calm, cool, and collected because we prepared for this. This is exactly what we talked about for how many years? We're not surprised that this is going on. We knew this was coming and we did everything right to prepare for it. We've done 900 streams talking about very similar things. I mean, our conversation, you realize, is very repetitive, for better or for worse. Very similar talking points almost every time we talk. And for years, we've done 2 streams a week, sometimes 3. So thank you all for joining me for all these years. And I'll see you guys and gals next week. Friday, July 18th, 12:55 p.m., 172 brave souls made it to the end of the stream today and are now a little bit more rational because of it. Please stay calm and cool over the weekend. Don't don't do anything crazy. Don't don't make rash decisions. Be rational. Take your time, methodical decisions, good decisions. And those are the decisions that matter in our lives. See you after the weekend. Till then, peace.